Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Wim Lou. This is the Reaction Podcast brought to you by Betway for all your sports gambling needs. Please hit the QR code below and don't let my uh, disappointment with this game and this heartbreaking, crushing ending in overtime deter you from hitting that QR code because yeah, that's a tough way to lose. Raptors lose tonight 129 to 127 in overtime against the Denver Nuggets. And yep, right away I already got the score wrong. It is actually 127 to 125. So I'm going to try to edit that as we go. However, Raptors losing this game in a way that was painful. Raptors had the lead for a large part of this game. Obviously, Denver, if you've been paying attention to the first week of the season, they haven't really been particularly sharp. They've lost their first two here. They lost to the LA Clippers, who are actually pretty feisty, I must say, to start this season here. But yeah, like this was tough. This was right there for Raptors team, and I think you could take this in a number of ways. And I'm very curious to hear what everyone's comments are about this game, because you can go a number of ways with a game like this. You can kind of go with like, the refs kind of screwed us here, which honestly, like I wouldn't hate if we did go with that one because Scottie Barnes ends up leaving this game. Scottie, I thought, played fantastic overall, but he ends up leaving this game after catching an elbow to the head when the Raptors were in a 2-point game. I mean, it doesn't really matter what context, but he catches a full elbow to the face from Nikola Jokic. It was in a loose ball scenario. Scottie had the play cleared out for him. He was trying to go to a jump hook. He'd been doing a really good job of scoring from the post in this game. And so you thought that would be enough for the Raptors to sort of get a good look. I thought it was a decent look. He just missed it. There was a short rebound. And so there was a chance there for the Raptors to crash for the offensive glass. Scottie, Jakob, Jokic, and I think Aaron Gordon, the four of them kind of going for it. And after a couple of taps, ultimately the Nuggets end up securing the ball and going the other way. But you saw Jokic just fully elbow Scottie in that sort of scrum. And it was pretty obvious. I mean, like, he completely fell over. He couldn't get back into the play as the timeout was called after Denver obviously scored in a 5-on-4. I think that made it a 2-point game, actually. It was a 4-point game when the Raptors had the ball. It became a 2-point game. You saw, Scottie, like, go to the bench, and a bit of a scary scene. He looked a little bit woozy, as you would expect. I mean, Jokic is a gigantic human being, and he just fully elbowed him in the eye. And so Scottie obviously leaves the game. We get the update later on from, Raptors PR that Scottie's out for the game. Well, no kidding. I mean, like, come on. I don't think anyone's coming back from that kind of USC move that we saw from Jokic. But at the same time, the Raptors also screwed their own chances out of this because they just needed to make their free throws down the stretch. Ultimately, after Denver scored, the Raptors still had their timeout and they were still up 2 with the ball. And yes, they lost Scottie, but if the Raptors just executed, got fouled, which they did intentionally, obviously, and just made their free throws, this would have been a different game. But the first opportunity to do so, Ochai Agbaji goes to the foul line. He misses the first one or the second one. Regardless, he goes 1 for 2. All of a sudden, it's a 3-point game. Now it's a 1-possession game. Then the Nuggets go the other way after a timeout. They do a little cross screen before the ball's inbounded, and the Raptors switched way too eagerly. That left Davion Mitchell guarding in the post against Nikola Jokic. Surprise, surprise. Jokic walks him to the rim and lays it in like it's over a child. I mean, like, I think the Raptors just, like, were too eager. They're trying to switch everything against a defense that in a defense where you are down 3. However, you got to know that Denver, with an extra timeout to go and a full shot clock, basically, they're probably going to go for a quick 2, especially when you got Jokic. And so the Raptors were a little too eager. They switched everything, and that left them with a bad mismatch. Fine. It's a 1-point game. You could still at least, really protect yourself by getting fouled once again, going to the foul line and making both. And this time they got it to Davion Mitchell, who had not shot a free throw yet this season. So obviously there's a bit of hesitation there. Still, it's still your point guard, and you want to be able to trust that goes in. However, the Raptors, unfortunately, go to the foul line, and Davion right away misses the first one. Then he makes the second one. At least it's a 2-point game at that point. Denver, I think, uses their last timeout, and then they bring the ball up. I think it was always going to be difficult in that kind of scenario. It's Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic in a two-man game. Of course, you can sort of nitpick this, and if it's a lot easier for me to sort of sit here from home to just be like, you could have played this a little bit differently. It's the best pick and roll in the NBA. It's arguably the most unstoppable play in the league. And yeah, I mean, Jamal gets a little bit too, I think Davion gets a little bit too separated from Jamal. I think, if he stayed a little bit closer, maybe he fights through the screen, maybe he denies Jamal, forces him to go middle where there was more help versus going baseline. But, Jamal's able to get that separation from Davion. Davion gets fully clipped on the screen by Jokic. And then Jakob is a little bit too late to come off of Jokic to provide the help. But again, like, I don't blame him at all, because you're never going to be leaving Jokic in any scenario, especially in a 2-point game. And Jamal goes baseline. Ochai does come over. He was guarding, I think, Eric Gordon in the dunker. So he was along the baseline, just in the opposite side of the lane. But he tries to come over, goes to the verticality. But Jamal smartly anticipates this, goes for reverse layup, and finishes on the other side of Ochai's contest against Ochai's momentum. And he gets that layup to drop. There's 0.5 seconds left. It's like almost as perfect of execution as you could possibly get. And the Raptors instead have to settle for overtime. And yes, there is still a chance to get it in overtime. There are some regrets. I think Grady Dick had a one-on-one opportunity against Jamal Murray. That was a 4-point game at that point. Let's say he makes a layup, or let's say he makes an and one, or let's say he gets fouled, he makes both, whatever. It's a 2-point game. You probably like your chances a lot better. But instead, Grady goes in, tries to sort of Euro step and finish on the reverse side. Jamal Murray anticipates this. He kind of like backs off to allow the Euro step to happen. Then Jamal was in position to contest. Granted, I think, Matty D was making this point on the call that there was still contact on Grady's arm by Jamal, but still, like, Jamal's mostly vertical. Like, I don't know. I think Grady could have probably just finished a little bit stronger. Grady certainly didn't protest the call, and I respect that. And yeah, the Raptors just ultimately didn't have enough there to sort of clinch it at the end. It was a 3-point game. The Raptors really had a chance. Then it really came down to a 2-point game, and the Raptors still had a timeout with about 9 seconds left after securing the rebound. And I don't know, maybe I'm expecting too much. Maybe it's sort of just like the play is the play and it's whatever. You were kind of battling uphill all game, and, you're already a little heartbroken to go to overtime in the first place. But Darko decided to trust his team and didn't call timeout. RJ brought the ball up the floor, and with like maybe 3 or 4 feet behind the 3-point line, just decided to pull up for a 3 over top of Christian Braun, who was right there with the contest. Like, not close enough to foul, but certainly a pretty good contest. And the Raptors missed a shot, a couple of tips at it. I think, Jakob was in contention for a putback. Ochai kind of tipped it. Grady kind of was in the way as well. All those guys went hard to the glass. Obviously, if they got the putback to drop, that's double overtime. But instead, the Raptors lose by 2 points in OT. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't like Darko not calling the timeout there. It's always sort of a bang bang. Of course, it's like always easier to play Monday morning quarterback. But, if it was in the hands of somebody who has that track record or that proven history of a pull up 3, even if it's Emmanuel quickly bringing the ball up the court, for example, I'd actually be relatively okay, or Scottie. But RJ was not in a particularly good spot in this game. He was rusty, as you can imagine. Him making his season debut, coming off of the shoulder injury, no surgery, just injury that he sustained in the first game of preseason. That was like almost a month ago now. And yeah, I mean, it's RJ Barrett pulling up for 3 from 30 feet. Like, unless it was against the Boston Celtics, which was like a miraculous game winner. If you've seen that one with his time with the Knicks. Like, that's just a bad shot. And I really wanted Darko to, especially when talking about like wins and lessons and a young team and all this other stuff, you had the timeout, and it's not like RJ had a clear lane to go strong to the cup or nothing. Like, Christian Braun is completely right there back and ready to sort of, defend the play. Like, I'm sorry, but Darko needed to call the timeout and draw up something. Like, get Grady coming off a screen. The Nuggets are probably switching a lot of scenarios in that situation. You can use him as a screener, get something else. Like, I'm sorry, but there's no way you could tell me that with 9 seconds left and a timeout, you can't get a better shot than RJ Barrett running the full length of the floor and pulling up contested for three with the 3 feet away from the rim, or the 3 feet away from the three. Like that's not a good play, like in any context. And I get that the Raptors were tired. I get that, they were a little bit sad and heartbroken. They were a little bit frustrated for sure. No Scottie. I don't even mind going for a three to end the game. Those are not my gripes. My gripes is this is a great teaching moment. This is a great opportunity for a young team where I'm sure right now in the post game you're hearing some rationalization about like we're gonna have to learn from this. We're a young team. This is what development is. Blah blah blah. But like that's just still not a good shot. Even for a winning team, I don't want to see that come down. Like you don't see the Nuggets coming down and having just, I don't know who's RJ's equivalent, like Michael Porter Jr. just pulling up. At least MPJ is a really good 3-point shooter, but like you don't just see that happening, right? Like they call timeout, they get the ball into the post to Jokic and he scores. Or they call timeout, they give the ball Jamal Murray, Jokic, 2-man pick and roll, and then they score. Like that's their composed possessions to end regulation. And the Raptors just and I don't put this on RJ. I really don't. Like at that point when you let her run, like that's all you got. Like it's either that or drive to the cup. And RJ was getting no calls at all going to this game. I actually don't even know if RJ shot free throws, which would be kind of crazy for how much he went to the basket. Yeah, he literally didn't get a single free throw in a game where he, shot 21 shots. I thought at least 3 or 4 of them could have easily been free throws, and this could have been like a 9-for-17 game rather than with like him going to the foul line 8 times versus like a 9 of 21 games and those 4 just being straight misses. But yeah, like call timeout, draw something up, like get Grady involved. Grady was super hot. He was kind of the hero of the fourth quarter. Grady actually was really cold for the bulk of the game. I think the Nuggets were really smart to put Christian Braun on him. Christian is another fellow like Kansas Jayhawk. He knows Grady quite well. And I think he did a really good job. I mean, they didn't overlap. Like Christian was already in the league before Grady went to Kansas for that 1 year. But I think he knew and he's played against him well enough to know this scouting report. And I thought his physicality, his attention to detail really, really kept Grady from getting to the shots that he has been getting to earlier this season. He didn't get a lot of those mid-range looks. He got a lot of other stuff. But like I thought Grady was the hero of the fourth quarter when it looked like Scottie was getting tired. RJ was pretty rusty. Like it just didn't seem like there was much offense coming, and all of a sudden Grady Dick gets fouled by Russell Westbrook shooting a 3. He makes all 3, and then he knocks down 2 wing threes, like 9 points in the span of like 3 minutes. There, I thought that was great, and then you just never saw Grady again. In fact, when I think back on it, when the Raptors were up 2 and anticipating an intentional foul from the Denver Nuggets, they didn't have Grady on the floor. And then after a timeout by the Nuggets and also free throws, like you could have obviously substituted. Grady also wasn't on the floor. And it's like, if you don't trust Grady to defend a 3-point game at the end of regulation, then like how much do you not trust Grady? Because I need Grady on the floor for the free throw shooting. Imagine that and not just like you can automatically get it to Grady, whatever, but like imagine if it wasn't Ochai shooting the free throws at the end there of regulation, or if it wasn't Davion shooting the free throws. Imagine it was RJ, or imagine it was Grady. He just wasn't even on the floor to even be given that chance. And then in overtime, he didn't get anything except for that transition layup, which honestly, that's on him. He probably could have finished a little bit stronger, especially because he's got size against Jamal Murray. I would have loved to see him go up and gather a little bit stronger instead of trying to reach and sort of stretch his way around. But that's just kind of how Grady goes about things, whatever, right? But that's not a play. That's just like an instance where you're on the fast break. Would have loved to see Grady even just on the floor for some of that. And that's where, for me, it's just like, I know this season is not about the wins and losses, but in terms of development, in terms of getting your young team confidence, this would have been a massive win. And instead, right now, it's a huge letdown. And I know that it's a privilege to even be let down and disappointed because you played so well, you played above your heads, and you're able to sort of get into this position where you feel like you should have beat a team in the Denver Nuggets who, were the champions 2 seasons ago. But still, I think some of the decisions down the stretch just felt like it's just too much. Like even Darko bringing in Jonathan Mobile for a defensive sequence when you're up 3, and it's like, okay, if there's a real chance you're going to foul up 3, why do you even need him in the game? I'd rather like get my best free throw shooters, so on the flip side of it, you can get him in. Now, of course, you can play offense defense if you have another timeout. Darko didn't have another timeout, so who you decide to guard that possession is who's going to be shooting the free throws on the ensuing play. So to me, like I think not calling the timeout when RJ had it again, it's there are certain instances where you let it run, right? You have mismatches, the other team's not back in transition, or, I don't know, someone's just red hot and you just kind of let it flow, whatever. But like I would have loved the timeout. This is all in hindsight, of course, but I would have loved the timeout on OT, and I would have loved for Grady to be on the floor for in those intentional fouling situations. They're going to foul you right away. Whether Jokic misses the shot or makes the shot, they're going to foul you. And you want your best free throw shooter in the game, period. And it's not like Grady is so bad on defense that you can't trust him to do anything, right? Like, so to me, I thought those were some mistakes. Otherwise, this actually was a really promising game from the Raptors. Like the reason why we're disappointed in a moment like this is because of the fact that you actually were in a game that was like so exciting, that was so there for you, that the Raptors were able to recover from. The Raptors were able to take a lead going into halftime. And I think that's where you could see a lot of positives from the young side. Like honestly, like I can't believe we're not sitting here right now celebrating the fact that RJ Barrett has come back from injury. And yes, he looked rusty. I think he's going to look a lot better than this on most nights. But there were plays like, Kim in the fourth quarter, it was a 4-point game, and he comes out and he just like comes out and then he just turns the corner. He just dunks all over the Denver Nuggets and puts, I think, Aaron Gordon on a poster, right? Like, and you get Matty D calling the RJ kidding me call, which really, if you're a diehard, Hello and Welcome fan, you can actually listen to the interview we did with Matt Devlin, where we pitched those calls to him by way of our friend Ennis Esmer. Shouts to a 2-time Canadian Screen Award winner. But like, that was awesome. Seeing Grady pop off for those 2 threes and getting fouled. So that's essentially 3 threes in the fourth quarter. That was awesome. Seeing Scottie Barnes in the bulk of this game until he got injured. And hopefully that's not a long-term injury. But honestly, the way the Raptors have been snake bitten to start the season, it's so unfortunate. But to see him over the balance of this game be able to be poised, be able to come out and play strong and play confident. And was it a perfect game? No, because there were real moments like that, like that jump hook. He missed that. There's another play where he posted up, he missed it. In the down the stretch. One more bucket from Scottie would have been great. But right before that, Scottie also hit a 3 from the top of the floor when the Raptors were down. That gave them some separation. Unfortunately, Christian Braun answered with the 3, and I think Scottie should have contested that. I don't mean like jumped out at him, but at least put a hand up. He had his hand down, whatever. But like Scottie knocking down the 3, Scottie finding, guys with the passing, Scottie, over the balance of the game, really shooting some of these like awkward like mid-range shots or like hook shots, and he's just using a drop step and getting to his bag. Like I thought he was super aggressive tonight, and he punished those mismatches. He touched the paint. He did a great job trying to contest against Jokic as well. Of course, Jokic is Jokic. He's throwing his body around. Nobody can really stop him. Jakob's our biggest guy. Like he didn't get any chances really to sort of like stop Jokic when Jokic was really determined to score on him. But like still, I think even Jakob taking it back to Jokic. I mean, he had 16 points, Jakob, and he also had 19 rebounds, including 8 offensive. Like Jakob was quietly awesome. He had 40 minutes to play too, but even Jakob taking it once in a while. Like Jakob this season has gotten a lot of plays for the Raptors where Raptors throw it into Jakob into the post, and then Raptors cut and split around him, and he makes a decision. Sometimes he passes it. My one thing with Jakob, he can pass, but he always soft throws. You never see like a hard throw, and it's always a soft throw over the top. It's never like it's never a fastball. It's always like some weird curveball over the top. Like, and it's never a bounce pass. I would love to see Jakob throw those with some more authority and sort of lead and be a little bit more courageous, I guess, with those passes. Because some of those soft passes over the top, that gives more time for the defense to sort of pluck it away. And he's got some turnovers that way. But as a function of the Raptors throwing it to Jakob so much in the post, there's some opportunities where nothing arises off those cuts or nothing Jakob likes in terms of the passes. And then he just takes it and takes 1 or 2 dribbles and starts exploring the post game. And he actually hit a couple of shots against, Jokic. I thought early in the game, he really established himself as a presence, not just in terms of the passing as a hub, but also being able to sort of take it to the cup a couple times. And he's got enough touch. He's got enough balance. He's got to up fake it, step through, all that kind of stuff. Like, I think he did a decent job. More than a decent job today, Jakob. He did a great job. I thought Davion in a game where obviously he missed that 1 free throw, but like he was really, really good outside of that. Now, there were a couple of turnovers too, and of course you can ding him for that. Typically, he's a pretty sure-handed guy, and I like the fact that when the Raptors were playing with the lead, but Denver was cutting it down at the end of regulation, he was the one who slowed it down a little bit, got it to Scottie, and then Scottie was able to make a couple of plays. But I thought Davion provided enough offensively, right? Him knocking down 3 threes, including one in OT, that was huge, right? That's part of what built the lead for the Raptors. And I think that, his defense on Jamal, while he did get cooked at the last possession there in regulation, Jamal still shot 6 to 20. There were plays where, um, Davion straight up blocked Jamal. And that was one of the more unfortunate things that happened in OT was Davion actually blocked Jamal on a short pull up, but nobody was around to collect the loose ball. And I think Jamal was able to sort of put it back in right away. And it's like that's the kind of stuff where it's like you really, really regret it. But that's not easy. And this is keeping in mind that the Raptors tonight forced Jokic into becoming a scorer. Right, they took away a lot of the passing options. They denied most of the other. They didn't really send a second defender at Jokic all that often, and that's why you saw Jakob get torched by him so many times. But at the same time, that means that the rest of the guys needed to really, really step up defensively around Yak, because Yak typically is the one helping everyone else and providing help at the rim. But if he's on Jokic and he's on single coverage against Jokic, there's no way he's also then helping at the rim. Like, no defender in the world can play one-on-one defense against Jokic and then also have the energy to always help at the rim. Like, that's ridiculous. I don't even think Wemby or AD can do stuff like that. And they're like, bam, and those are the best like defensive bigs in the league. So you needed your other guys to be able to guard on ball better. And that's where I thought, Davion did a really good job of that. Jamal Shed, gave them contributions off the bench. Ochai Agbaji, I thought, was awesome off the bench. 15 points, 7 rebounds, took it strong. I think a lot of the function of him to start the season has been in the starting lineup. He honestly, if Scottie's injured to any degree, I think he's going right back into the starting lineup. But like, the fact that he played well off the bench, that's great to me. That shows me that, this really is a promising sign with Ochai. Like, it's not just, he's playing the starting lineup and he's the 5th option and he's getting some open chances or whatever. You see him tonight, right? He's taking it strong. Like, he even sees there's a play where the Raptors, and you see this a million times, right? A point guard brings it up and then, dribbles it sideways and someone else comes over and crosses over with him. And sometimes he receives the ball. And you saw in this situation, it's just the point of that play is just to create a little bit of a moment of indecision on that dribble handoff. And the Nuggets were like, they didn't even screw up the switch. They were just a little bit slower on the switch than they needed to be. But also at the same time, in the past, you're probably okay with that being a slow switch because Ochai's not looking to turn the corner and attack. But Ochai caught it and saw that he got, Julian Strawther on him, and he just took it straight to the basket, took it strong, and finished over contact. He's catching alley-oops from half from Scottie Barnes in the fourth quarter there to sort of bump the lead up. Like, Ochai did so much. And again, it's a similar thing to Davion. The only thing against him was the missed free throw, which really, really would have changed things. But he played an awesome game, and he continues to be a guy who can knock down some threes. He was 2 of 5 from 3. If Ochai is 2 of 5 from 3 all season on wide open catch and shoot corner threes, that's enough. That's literally enough for him. He did a good job. Jamal Shed, I thought he was a little bit wild at times, had some bad turnovers, kind of got into a back and forth with Westbrook, but he also took two charges, including one where the Nuggets were threatening to sort of come back in the fourth quarter. The Raptors were starting to lose their edge. They were starting to get tired, and they turned the ball over. It was a 2-on fast break, and he takes the charge. Like, that's the stuff that you love to see. And in terms of, like, by the way, who's going to be in for a close possession in the defensive sequence, I would love to see Jamal be on the floor in future sequences. The thing with Jamal, though, with Jamal Shed at least, is I think people are starting to figure out, and I will be interested to see how he tracks against this type of player. But you saw when Jamal Murray had the opportunity to attack Jamal Shed, he took the opportunity to sort of post him up. Like, the first play, I think Shed came in. Jamal literally posted him up, took him to the rim, and drew a foul. And the next play down, I think Jamal was able to drive it strong against Shed and finished high off the glass, shooting at an angle with the off arm that was like just literally impossible for Jamal Shed to disrupt. So, like, I think that there's obviously going to be sequences where we've seen him be disruptive. We've seen him sort of get in ball handlers. But what can he do against taller point guards, right? Like, for example, Jamal, we don't think of him as a taller point guard. He is still 6'4", 6'5". And there is a noticeable difference between him and a guy like Shed, who isn't short necessarily. Like, he's not a tall player, but he's like 6'1". Like, he's taller than Davion Mitchell, for example. But there is a sizable gap. And so, we'll have to sort of see. But I thought, Jamal gave them some good minutes. I thought that, overall, Darko managed the bulk of this game decently. I think he got Scottie some rest after about 2-3 minutes in the fourth quarter because Scottie really needed some. He started to make some mistakes on that front. He worked RJ back into rotation and put him in the starting lineup. He, even despite playing overtime, RJ only played 29 minutes, and I think that's a good sign of, just, I think they probably wanted to play RJ 25 minutes max today, but then they played OT. So they got him 29 minutes. But it's still good minute management around RJ, especially in a difficult situation where you are in a close game and you would love for his offense to be on the floor. I like that he took, Bruno Fernando out of the rotation. This would have been a good game for Bruno to play on paper because obviously you have Jokic, but I think that, unless Jakob got into foul trouble, and Jakob only actually committed 2 fouls tonight, so he was never in foul trouble, it actually, there was no need to play Bruno Fernando. There was enough moments where Jakob was able to sort of mirror against you know Jokic's minutes, and Davion was able to mirror against Jamal Murray's minutes. And I thought those two actually did, despite the fact that Murray and Jokic combined for 57. I actually think they did a really good job in the grand scheme of things. Where this game was lost for me were just a couple of too many errors for the Raptors, just a couple of moments where they just looked a little too disjointed. A couple of moments where a couple of loose balls didn't go their way, and Denver getting 15 offensive rebounds. They actually got less than Toronto, but it felt like down the stretch they got the ones that they really needed to sort of like change the course and the balance of this game, and that's disappointing to me. Of course, that's just a little bit on sharpness. And then honestly, I think that this is just an unfortunate game for RJ to come back in, because I thought overall RJ actually played really well. Well, no, I wouldn't say RJ had a really good game, to be honest. RJ had a really good start to this game. He had 9 points right away. He took a strong to the cup a few times. Then he knocked down a corner three. And, Denver's defense has been really lethargic. They obviously picked up their intensity in the second half. And that's what ultimately got them across the line here in a very, very comeback fashion, by the way. I think Denver was very lucky to win this game, regardless of how good they are. But over the middle parts of the game, I thought RJ just didn't really have a good sense of when to go to the basket, and also what type of shots, because RJ is really good at going to the hoop. He literally dunked all over, I think, Gordon. Again, RJ kidding me is an incredible call. Shouts to Matt Devlin for that one. But I still think that there were so many drives that were ill-advised, and there were so many drives where he might have been able to kick out or at least finish in a different way. And I'm not concerned about this going long term, because I know this is just the first game back for RJ Barrett when he's still suffering from the shoulder thing, right? Not the first thing I would want to do coming off a shoulder injury is not drive into 7-footers in a lane, right? And never get the foul call. But I thought, there was just a couple of situations where I think if RJ looks back on the film, he was a step slow on defense. He got back cut, not back cut, but just guys getting around him for tip-ins and stuff like that. I didn't think it did a good job, defending against Aaron Gordon's activity and movement, right? I don't think that, he drove it. He picked all the right moments to drive. And then I think the last shot is whatever. I actually don't put that on him. It's fine. I don't think him driving to the cup would have been better there, because his Braun was actually in a good position to sort of, stay with him. But it just wasn't the best. And I think the play that summed it up for me the most was just, there was a sequence midway through overtime where the Raptors were down 3, I think, at that point, and RJ took a strong to the basket and tried to switch hands midair, and ultimately short arm the layup or whatever. And he realized the frustration. He realized that he didn't get the foul call. Then he starts running back, and he's so determined to get back that he just runs straight into the paint rather than assessing the situation, because he was behind on the play. He's the last man on the play, so he has to pick up the trailer, whoever's at the top of the floor. And in this case, it was Jokic at the top of the floor, and Jokic literally looked behind him, saw that RJ had his head down, ran all the way into the paint. Then he picked his head up, realized Jokic had the ball at the 3 the whole time. Then RJ tried to close back out, so he literally runs all the way back, then back out. And at this point, Jokic obviously has a wide open, set foot 3, and he's been shooting the 3 really well recently. He literally made 9 last game, and he's also a 3-time MVP, so he's gonna knock that down, no problem. It's moments like that, and I think that this is nothing against RJ. He's going to be a lot sharper than this. He's going to have lots of better games than this. But the first game back, this being the first game back, he was a little uneven, and to me, that's a pretty normal thing. But again, it's unfortunate, because again, we had this game, man. This game was right there. This game would have been one of the signature wins. And it's just unfortunate that it didn't work out that way, man. It actually guts me so much that we didn't get this win. And I know it's not about the results this season, right? It's about sort of the development, but like still, I think this really would have validated a lot of their project, given this team a lot of confidence, and they should maybe still take some confidence out of this, like taking the, I guess not the reigning champs, but the previous champs, to overtime is still good. But I think everyone who was a part of this game, who watched this game, is just gonna feel this feeling of regret, because we were right there. And whether that was the missed foul call on Jokic to literally knock out Scottie, and I hope he's okay. I wonder what updates we'll get in the coming days, because the Raptors do a play again on Wednesday, and then they play a back-to-back Friday and Saturday. And honestly, the last thing I would really hope is for Scottie not to miss any time prolonged, but you obviously got to be careful with some things like this. Hopefully he's okay. And also, like, he might miss like LeBron coming into town, or like, Vince Carter's like jersey retirement. Like, these are huge games that I'm sure he wants to play in. Like, how many times have we seen Scottie really get up for the games against the Lakers, against LeBron? Like, some of his biggest games in his career are against the Lakers, because of sort of the excitement around playing against Braun, or like, getting the jersey retired, with Vince. And like, he's got that connection with Vince, right? Remember, it was Vince who did the announcement video that Scottie had won Rookie of the Year. All right. They're both from Florida. Like, stuff like that is just like, I just don't want to see him not be in the lineup, especially when he was actually really good in this game. And yeah, you could look back at a regret for that foul call. I don't even think Scottie would have been in any state to shoot it. So I think the Nuggets would have been able to pick like whoever on the Raptors to shoot it. Probably going to be Jakob, if I had to guess. But Jakob's also been kind of switching that recently too, with the one-handed shots. And yeah, I mean, Davion missing the free throw, Ochai missing the free throw, Darko not calling the timeout. Like, there's obviously lots of things, but I think there's still a lot of good things in this game. And I just wish that they took the actual result, as I'm sure a lot of other people would have in this scenario too. So we are going to get to your questions. This is another reminder to sort of send them in. Producer Alex will be highlighting, and we will be collecting those questions. But first, we want to bring you a message from one of our beloved sponsors. So by now, you've already heard the news that Coors Light, as part of the Raptors' 30th anniversary, has these very specially branded cans. They look beautiful. Look at these things, man. Look at these.
They're covering each era from the first 30 years of the Raptors, and you can get them now at select LCBO stores, participating bars and restaurants across the GTA, and also at Scotiabank Arena. But one more thing, Will, make sure to check out ERAineveryCan.com, ERA in everycan.com, to check out these limited edition cans. And fans can go on the website and enter for a chance to win exclusive Coors Light Raptors prizes. I heard there's some really cool merch collabs and other things happening as well.
So. No, I'm actually, you know what? You actually did tell me what those collabs are going to be. And I got to say, like, I'm really, really excited. I know Coors Light is a partner that we've worked with in the past as well, but this is just beautiful. Like, honestly, I don't even know if I want to drink these cans, man. You got like the OG, you got like the championship season, and then you got like whatever's in between. I guess the Chris Bosh can. I'll probably drink the Chris Bosh can if it.
I mean, one to rock, one to stock, and also for Raptors fans, like, make sure you keep an eye out. Follow Coors Light on social, because they're gonna pop up around the city as well.
Oh, word?
I'm hearing they might be at Rogers Center. They might be outside Scotiabank Arena. They might be at Nathan Phillips Square for more prize giveaways. So make sure you check that out. Remember, you must be 19 plus and celebrate responsibly.
I'm going to be there. I can't wait to celebrate. I will be there. I cannot wait to celebrate. And of course, I want to bring you this portion of the show is brought to you by Tangerine. Tangerine is the official bank of Hello and Welcome. Tangerine is the official bank of the Toronto Raptors, foundational partner of the WNBA and the NBA. And of course, fans are at the core of everything Tangerine does. Tangerine is committed to supporting basketball in Canada at all levels, from grassroots organizations all the way up to the pros. They are about forward banking, which means no unfair fees, no overly complicated products, no expensive brick and mortar branches. Learn more about Tangerine at tangerine.ca. Tangerine, the official bank of the Toronto Raptors. Okay, so what I'm going to start to introduce here is an official Tangerine question of the game, and this is the Tangerine Q&A segment here. And we want to hear from you. So, Alex, what is our Tangerine question of the day? This one from Luke. Okay, even with the uncharacteristic clutch 3 by Mitchell, do you think Shed could have been a steadier hand to close? I think that's a decent question. I think because I think that Jamal has played at high enough of a level to start the season between preseason and also now the first 3 games of the year or 4 games of the year where there's a conversation we had between who should get the minutes between him and Davion. I think ultimately, in terms of steadier, I do think that Davion is steadier. Davion did have a bad pass where he threw it into the backcourt, but I think in general, Davion still is a guy with more experience, and Jamal probably plays a little bit more. He plays faster. Like I think he has got a quicker crossover to get into the lane. Um, and that I think generates actually a little bit more offense just because you have somebody going to the basket. But also at the same time, I do think that Jamal's thrown some bad passes as well, and that's a part of his game that I didn't anticipate sort of him um, struggling with at this point. Maybe it's just because I wasn't familiar enough with his play in college, but he's had a couple more turnovers here than I really expected. Like for example, you even saw a play where I think it was the fourth quarter or maybe third quarter where Raptors were on the fast break. They had 2 guys actually running to Jamal's left. Jamal had the ball, breaking the ball. And Davion was actually running on the right side. The defense was sort of shifting slowly, sort of more towards the left. And so Jamal made a good read and tried to throw a pass sort of against the grain to Davion, who was sneaking to the basket. But Jamal sort of threw the pass too far and it kind of overcooked it and led Davion out of bounds. Instead of sort of to the basket for a layup. So I do think that like given a choice between sort of who I need as a quote unquote steady hand, I'd probably go with Davion. But I have to say that Jamal has played really well to start the season. He's shown what he can do defensively for sure, just like Davion has. I think having both of them at point guard right now has been a really good luxury. No point guard has really gone off against us. I think like Darius Garland game 1, I mean, whatever, they lost by 30, but like Darius Garland was not good in that game. I think he was like maybe 2 of 10. And then game 2 of the season, Maxey, who by the way broke out in a huge way against the Pacers, and he dropped the 40 ball. But in Maxey, I think he went like 6 of 23, right? And then Minnesota was generating offense mostly through other players, largely through their front court. And Anthony Edwards, but it wasn't like Mike Conley was going off either. And even this game with Jamal Murray, and again, that's a huge caveat that he literally tied this game and forced OT. So he hit the biggest shot of the game for me. He still shot 6-20 from the field with 17 points. Like I think that's a huge testament to both Jamal and Davion. But I think Davion will still get the minutes ahead of Jamal just for now. But it's cool that for a rookie, he's actually played it close enough. All right, next one from Sahal. Play the tapes, Will. Show us Westbrook and Lowry's son going after Barnes. Sign Ibaka to a minimum as Scottie's new bodyguard. And I do miss having like an enforcer type or maybe an enforcer character. I think that in previous years we've had like, I thought OG was always sort of down to scrap and sort of get into mixes. I think obviously Serge always loved fighting and missing punches in those fights. I think that Kyle Lowry was always down to scrap. I think the joke here from Sahal, friend of the program, is that there was a sequence in the bubble, I believe. Raptors were playing Orlando, and he hard fouled Aaron Gordon. Like first off, in terms of the basketball play, Lowry was fully the one at fault pulling down Aaron Gordon. But when Aaron Gordon said, I don't like that, he kind of stepped to him, and Kyle got ejected, and I think Aaron Gordon got ejected. I think Kyle was yelling his room number at Aaron Gordon in terms of like, you can meet me literally at the same place that we're all staying for the next month or so. So shouts to Kyle for wanting to fight people in the middle of a pandemic, man. That's incredible, man. The league's like doing everything possible. The world's doing everything possible for physical distancing. And Kyle Lowry's like, nah, come meet me in 1723, right? In the Mickey Mouse wing of this NBA game. I don't know if the Raptors need an enforcer type necessarily, but I do like that. So the play he's referring to is Westbrook. Scottie was on the fast break, and Westbrook just like yanked Scottie down with 2 hands in midair. Obviously, a dangerous play. Like I would say it's a hard foul for sure. It's certainly a flagrant foul. It wasn't like too excessive in the sense that it's not like he had like violent intent and like threw him down like whatever, but it's still a flagrant foul. And obviously Scottie didn't like it. And he told Westbrook about it. You could kind of hear Westbrook on the broadcast being like, it's a hard foul. It's a hard foul. But like, I like Scottie kind of going after him for it. And Aaron Gordon on the Nuggets side stepped in to sort of like push Scottie, and then Scottie kind of pushed back. That's why they got offsetting technicals. But yeah, I kind of like that. I like a little nasty in my players for sure. And I think it's not like he's afraid to fight anybody. He's certainly like willing to sort of get into people's faces. And I do like that he stepped to Westbrook there. I didn't like that he missed the first tactical free throw though, because it would have been really nice to get both free throws in a game again that went to overtime. But yeah, Scottie played really well, and yeah, you can't let Westbrook punk you, man. Westbrook is also like he's so on tilt. Like Westbrook's the guy who sits down at a poker table and just goes all in every hand, and then he's like, "Oh, I broke out with my 6-8 and it didn't hit. Let me buy back in for $100 and let me go all in the next play." Like it's stupid. Like it actually is stupid watching him play basketball right now. Like he's just going for whatever the most aggressive decision is, regardless of any sort of reading of the play. And it just obviously is a net negative in general. And I think that like he's got such a strong personality. The other guys gotta like back him, whatever. But it's like he's not making winning plays out there. And like especially not yanking down Scottie midair. That was terrible. Nesta, the next question. How painful is it to watch Westbrook in the twilight of his career from such highs to such lows? I think this was always going to be the ending for Russell Westbrook. Like, if I had to guess what style of sort of like winding down his career would look like it was always going to be that Allen Iverson path of like, you know what, AI had the highest heights. He was super cool. I think that like there was like this, what you loved about AI ultimately was what kind of doomed them as well. And every player is different. They got their own situations, but I see a lot of similarities to sort of how Westbrook sort of, corroded. I think with AI too, he was obviously a much more skilled scorer than Westbrook, but Westbrook had more athleticism and was bigger. The thing is, like, Westbrook was always able to sort of push it and play all out. And generally speaking, that was on the right side of the ledger. And now watching Westbrook, like he looks and feels like Rishi in season 3 of Industry. It's like he's just crashing out, man. He's just straight up crashing out. And like, it's when he was playing on a max and he was crashing out, that was Rishi crashing out of like 200K when he was up in blackjack. Right now, Westbrook crashing out as a bench player for the Denver Nuggets, making like, the biannual or whatever he's making, is like when Rishi was crashing out with like the 250 that he got from Vinay on the birthday card to his son. So I hope you watch Industry, because I hope you got that reference. But that's what it feels like with Russ to me. Like he's just gambling. Like every play is a gamble. There were like plays in the first half, and I thought Denver's bench just looked so bad in the first half. But like some of that was because they just kept trying to like get the ball to Saric and then back cut and throw these passes, and the Raptors are picking those off so easily. Whatever, that wasn't working. But it was also like there were multiple plays where Westbrook would just bring the ball up, come down, and then just pull up from the mid range, like from with 18 left on the clock. And it's like, yo, this isn't 2010 anymore. Like that's not how this is played. And of course he missed it. And then another play where he dribbled the whole possession and then threw up some like random shot. Like it is kind of sad, really, because I really did like Westbrook at the peak of his career. It was kind of like hard not to watch him. He was like so fast, so violent. I love that style of player too, because it's just like coming at you nonstop. But when you can't do it anymore to that same level and you're still coming at you nonstop and there's just no adaptation to your game, then you kind of just get this, which is like, teams kind of rolling the dice, being like, maybe, we'll hit on Westbrook. Like, I guess signing Westbrook is the same way that he plays. It's just a straight gamble every time. And most times you're gonna break out, man. Like the house always wins. Like the house being the NBA, I suppose. But yeah, it's not looking good, unfortunately. Next one from Alex Nguyen. How much run does Mobo and Shed get in the 905? How much run does Jacoby Walter get with the main club? So I think what's helping right now in terms of Jamal get more minutes is the fact that obviously IQ's been out with injury. I think kind of to some degree, Mobo has a similar thing because of Kelly being injured with the back injury. Those guys will continue to get minutes. I think Darko's even shown a willingness to sort of play 2-point guard looks, right? Preseason, for example, quickly was available for that one. And I guess the home opener, but like he played 3-point guards in his rotation, which obviously most of the time you will have to play 2-point guards at once to sort of play 3-point guards. So I think Jamal will continue to get minutes. I think honestly, Mobile will continue to get minutes too. I think Darko has already realized that like it's just not necessarily worth it to play Bruno. There's just a few too many mistakes that he's sort of going out there and playing with. You saw already, this is game 4 of the season. He didn't get into the game. And this is a game where there was Jokic, like another big body. But I can only kind of imagine what would have happened if you threw Bruno at Jokic. So I think Mobile will get some more minutes on that front. I think what you saw with Darko do a couple times now is have 3 of his forwards on together. So it'll be Scottie, Mobo, and Chris Boucher, and sort of use that sort of like Vision 690 look to sort of mask for the fact that they don't really have a 7-footer, a real center out there. It's ironically, it's actually very similar to sort of how the Raptors played pre Jakob Poeltl, was just kind of that constantly. So like a little bit of that type of look. I also think that like in terms of what was disappointing, it was disappointing in the fourth quarter to see Chris Boucher come in, and Scottie needed like 3-4 minutes of rest because he played like a long stretch between the end of the third and the start of the fourth. And Chris came in and he just immediately gave up 2 straight drives to the basket. One with MPJ sort of like getting him on a jab step and then driving middle for an and one. You can even hear, I think, Davion Mitchell being like, "No, Chris, no," right? Like literally telling him that like that was a mistake. And then the next play down, Christian Braun crossed him up and took him all the way to the basket for a layup. And it was just like, like that was just like firmly there for Chris not to sort of like do that. And of course, like in terms of, when we're talking about sort of like how much are you bringing to the table versus how much you're taking off? Like Chris did have 2 open looks for 3 and he knocked those down. Again, the fourth quarter been totally different. But still, like I think that Darko has experimented with those sort of like centerless looks and sort of just like use that length. I think in general though, like I would love to see them both play for the Raptors and the 905. There's a decent amount of times where, especially with the G League season, like the Raptors 905 and the Raptors might be home at the same time for a week, like for them to sort of shuttle back and forth. There were moments last year where I think there was a moment where Grady played a back-to-back-to-back, and that was like a game in the 905. Then he came to play the Raptors. Then he played back to 905, and it was like the more reps you can get with these guys in game action, the better. I think in terms of what I want to see them work on when they get down to that level is, I think for Jamal, I would love to see him work on creating more offense and running the show. A couple of things to know on that end. I would love to see him cut down on turnovers. He's throwing some wild passes. I think he needs to adjust to the length of the of the league too, because it feels like sometimes he's throwing a pass that probably would be open in college, but in the pros there's just more length. And then I think too, I want to see him sort of work on his scoring game. We know he can get into the paint and spray it out. That's really good. Gonna keep that absolutely. But like, getting to his own shot, maybe even one-on-one. We haven't seen him ever go one-on-one yet to start his career. Obviously work on the 3. Those are things that I think will be very valuable for Jamal. I think for Jonathan, like I think offensively, again, would love to see him sort of working a couple catch and shoot threes. That's something that he works on before the game. He sometimes gets in a good rhythm, but he's like so scripted. He's like preloaded catching, and like the shot is, I don't know. There's a lot moving in the shot, I would say, but he's, I have seen him make like 5, 6 in a row sometimes when he gets in a good rhythm. So it's not like he can't make it, but it's also like very rehearsed and scripted. And I think that in a game setting, you're not always going to be able to like catch, set your feet, dip, and then go into your full form. Like it's just not the same as like shooting 10 shots in a row from the corner. Like obviously you're going to be more accurate doing that versus in the middle of a game. But I think more than anything else, I want to see Jonathan work on his scoring moves when he gets to the basket, because I think he has actually done a decent job. He can obviously handle a little bit. Sometimes he can like get himself into positions in the middle of the floor and make a decision. The thing is, I haven't seen him make good decisions yet, with the scoring in the middle of the floor. And that's probably the hardest thing because he's not a natural scorer. But like we've seen him, for example, throw up these like strange floaters going to the basket. Those kind of have no chances of going in. We've seen him try to finish in moments that just straight up don't seem open, or that are just a little bit too simplistic. Like literally work on his finishing, throw in some up fakes, go strong sometimes. I think outside of two-handed dunks, he's actually not shot the ball well at all. Like I think there's just more to work on the offensive end, and just to get more reps handling it too, running a couple plays. It'll be very valuable for all the rookies to get some time. You know what I mean? Like the same thing goes with like Jamison Battle. I think with Jamison, more than anything else, he's got to get up to speed with how defense is played, because it feels like he's kind of like a little bit step slow. He's anticipating a lot, and then he's using his hands to sort of impede and sort of like basically cheat his way back into defensive position. And that's what's being called all the time. Like the game against Philly ends up fouling out in like less than 20 minutes. Today, in 12 minutes, he commits 3 fouls, right? So that's gonna hurt both himself in terms of getting him off the floor, but also hurting the team because that's putting the other team in the bonus. So there's lots of things for all these young guys to work on. So I'm actually really looking forward to watching the 905 this season. And of course, I've said this a few times, but if you obviously Raptor games are pretty expensive now, it's pretty inaccessible to get to. Like if you want to be able to sort of like take your whole family to a game, like go to the 905. Like it's obviously not the same thing. It's obviously in Mississauga. It's I say Mississauga like it's a bad thing. Like I just mean like it's not obviously downtown. So if you live downtown, whatever. But like it's a good time. Like you can get really good seats. You can take your whole family there. It's probably going to cost you less than like $60 to take your family of 4. Take your nuclear family to the 905, okay? And yeah, you can actually have a good time. You can actually see some pretty skilled players. It's not going to be the same hype. But at the same time, like I think you got a really good chance to see players in different contexts. And the Raptors actually will be sending lots of guys up and down. So you get to see their growth. So I don't mind that at all. Alice, we got more questions or no? We do. Michael Austin. Last one here. Do you think the front office will make a decision to unofficially tank sooner rather than later? We've seen them typically be slow to make any drastic move, but with the next draft, should they pivot? I don't think that this is a decision to make right now. And what I mean by that is unofficially tank, like you're not going to just hold out healthy players, right? Like if you just tell, this is week 2 of the season, if you just go to Jakob and say like, hey man, we're playing the Nuggets tonight, actually, you know what, the Nuggets not playing well, we actually want you to sit, like, and he's fully healthy, that's how you lose all credibility in your organization, like right away, right? That's how you get players to sort of ask for trades. Like seriously, imagine that's, like you just can't tell that to a competitor. It just, I don't care. It's just you can't. Obviously, you can make different types of moves, like trade pieces off, but that's gonna, number one, depend on when you make those trades, you want to get the most that you can out of those trades, which means you want to wait until the other team is on the most maximum amount of need. It also depends on if those trades are actually there to be made, because I'm not just trading players for nothing. And then on top of that, like that's not even going to happen at the earliest until maybe end of December, start of next season. So like last year, for example, the first major trade of the season was made by the Raptors, right? Like you saw OG getting moved. Well, I guess the first major trade in our mind was technically Sixers trading James Harden to Clippers, but it feels like that was so early in the season. That might as well have been an offseason trade. In fact, it might have been. Maybe I'm just misremembering the timeline of that trade. Why did I feel like James Harden played like 1 or 2 games with the Sixers last year? Well, in any case, OG was traded like December 29th, I think, maybe 30th. And then you saw that Pascal was traded like, midway through January. So, yeah, if the Raptors were to make trades, number one, they have to be good trades. And number two, it probably won't happen until that point. So at this point, that's why the first 20 games of the season, for everybody, it's like let's just see what we have, And like, I think you can confidently enough say that the Raptors are a young enough team against a hard enough schedule where you're probably going to be in a position that when you go past these 20 games, they might be like 7-13. They might be like 6-14, right? And in that case, like this is already kind of made for you. So I'm not saying that like, they should not be proactive, because this draft is quite good. But also, before we look at next year's draft and how much promise that goes into it, because there's always that sort of thrill of like this next great thing, and there's genuinely some great prospects. Like I'm not saying that the draft is rubbish, but can we even see what we have yet? Like a lot of these guys are new, right? Like Ochai's new, Grady is new. He's in year 2. They got 3 rookies in their rotation. That's new, right? Scottie in a lead role, that's new. RJ and IQ, to me, that's still pretty new. They spent less than like 50 games here with the Raptors. I actually want to see what those guys are, what they do, and how they play together. Most importantly, that information to me is also hugely valuable, because that one pick could be anybody. Like honestly, if they end the season and they get, Cooper Flag, or they get like Ace Bailey, even some of the other guys like, come on, Mulak, he's like very skilled and he's like 7'3", although he's basically like another Uri Shamshe in terms of like just like the rawness, that's going to take a little bit of time, although he is bigger and shoots a 3 better. But like, Dylan Harper or like Nolan Traore, like there's obviously guys, right? Like VJ Edgecombe, like those I would welcome any of those guys on the Raptors coming into the side of the following season. But that one person is still going to need time to grow and develop, and most importantly, they need a context to grow and develop in. Like I'm sorry, like all right now is focused, and all my interest right now as a fan is focused in what are the Raptors right now, and I just want to see how that goes first before anything else. So I think it's a fair question for Michael. I think it's something that the Raptors have been a little bit slow to pivot in previous seasons, but I just don't see them in the same scenario. That one is like, OG's due for a payday. Fred's due for a payday. Pascal's due for a payday. You either trade them or you get nothing for them, in the case like Fred, for example. That's where you got to be proactive. And right now, I don't see that same thing happening. I think the Raptors got to grow on their own and stand on their own feet. And if they don't stand up, then they got to get some help from the draft. But I don't see them tanking games. No one talks about tanking 4 games in. It's just not a thing. Okay, so to wrap up your 3 stars from tonight's game, your most important guy, your Gerald Henderson Award winner. First off, your 3 stars. First star, I'm going to give that to, I'll probably give it to Scottie. 21 points, 12 rebounds, 9 assists, 5 steals, a block, 4 turnovers, 9 of 19, hit a 3, 2 of 4 from the foul line. It took a lot of contact. Unfortunately, literally took an elbow to the head. So we'll see if he's okay or not. I'm going to scroll through my Twitter timeline real quick. I think Darko, all he said was that there was no update. He confirmed that Scottie got elbowed in the eye and then he's getting tests done. Okay, that's just stating the obvious. Never mind. But yeah, he was awesome through the bulk of this game. This is gonna be his best game. It was so close to being a triple double as well, statistically. But most importantly, it was so close to being a win. And yeah, he almost took them there. And that's just so unfortunate. If he had just made the jump hook, that put the Raptors up 6 with like probably 40 seconds left. And instead of him missing the jump hook, going for the rebound, getting elbowed, Nuggets going the other way, scoring 4 on 5, and Raptors missing some free throws down the stretch. I'm not putting that on him. I'm just saying that like that one missed jump hook was such a big inflection point. And I hope Scottie's not out for too long. But seriously, he got elbowed real hard. And again, I don't know how the refs didn't see that either. That's really wild to see. Your second star, I'm going to give that to Jakob. 16 points, 19 rebounds, 2 assists. It's about time Jakob got a star. He's played pretty up and down to start the season, but on the games that he's been up, man. I think the Sixers game, he was awesome in this game. I know Jokic had 40, but he did a really good job overall. He took it back to Jokic a couple times. Again, I like the fact that when these like plays out of the high post for Jakob break down, he's actually turning around and like taking 1 or 2 dribbles and try to go at the hoop. I actually don't mind that. Like as a backup option, like Jakob has something, like obviously it's not the first option, it's a backup, but there's something there with Jakob, and he's doing a pretty good job so far. Your third star, I think I'll probably give it to it's either Ochai or Davion. I mean, both of them missed a key free throw. I'll probably give it to Davion. I think Davion has played pretty well here. 16 points, 6 assists, 2 rebounds, 3 threes, 5 of 10 from the field. He's just made enough offense. Like, the pick and roll against Jokic, you can score against it, and I think you saw multiple Raptors do that. But Davion took his chances. And I think more importantly, defensively did a really good job against Murray, except for the last play of regulation. But whatever, whatever. We'll just rue this game. Your Gerald Henderson Award winner, that is gonna, I don't even know, to be honest, man. There's probably Christian Braun. I mean, I think that big 3 at the end there, the stop against, not even a stop. You just like contested RJ pretty well. 17 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal. For Christian Braun, he only made 1 3, but that 3 was huge. The Nuggets, by the way, have a huge 3-point shooting problem in the sense that they just never create any. Like, they just never like to take any. They never like to create any. They only took 20. That's mathematically, like, the Nuggets will lead or be 2 NBA. Okay, subtract Westbrook's 2-pointers from the overall ledger. I think the Nuggets will be 1 or 2 in 2-point percentage. And yet, I don't think they'll be top 5 in offensive rating because they just don't shoot enough threes. They might be very efficient in the threes that they shoot. They just don't shoot enough of them. How can you tell me you played 53 minutes in the modern NBA, you only get 23s up? Now, like, obviously, you play a lot through Jokic, whatever. That's fine. I have no issues with anything Jokic does offensively. No one could. But the rest of the team just does not get enough threes up. And their bench is abysmal, man. But yeah, I'll give it to Christian Braun. He delivered. Your most important guy award brought to you by Greta Bar, by the way. Great place to go pregame, postgame, up on King West. We're actually doing a live event at Greta on October 12th. We're actually doing a free watch party. It'll be Raptors against the Milwaukee Bucks. It'll be on the road. So, we're going to be at Greta. Again, Greta Bar YYZ. That's at King and Portland in King West. And we'll be there November 12th. There's actually going to be a link. You can actually go to probably our Instagram or our Twitter. You can probably find it there. We'll have a graphic linking to the live watch party, but it'll be free. We'll be doing some giveaways as well. We'll be doing a live reaction podcast afterwards, and it'll be a great time to sort of just chill and hang out, meet a lot of you. I know a lot of tickets have already gone really quickly. We've actually tried to speak to the bar, maybe potentially open up more tickets. So just keep checking to see if those are available. But again, shouts to Greta. The most important guy of this game it's actually Matt Devlin, and here's why. So earlier this season on the Raptors show, previously on the Raptors show, like Dragon Ball Z style, we were in Montreal and we were down in training camp, and we got to talk to Matt on the podcast. And of course, we had a great conversation. It was actually really great. It's always great to chat with Matt. For someone who is like going into year 17 of covering the Raptors, who is like a guy who obviously he used to work on TNT calling playoff games, and he's called baseball games, and he's got this like long celebrated career. For him to always come to us and see us eye to eye, and not treat us like being above us, but just like sit down and have a conversation with us, always to me feels really cool. Like prior to that actual chat that we had with Matt, me and him were just at practice. We were going to go in an Uber together to go to the studio in Montreal. Shouts to Sonar Virage once again. But like Matt was just like, "You want to get a coffee?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So we just walked around downtown, and we got to this like really, really nice cafe in Montreal. It was like this very open area. There's like an open public park, and in downtown near UQAM. And we just sat down. We got two allongés, which, as you do in Quebec, it's just a long espresso, but it sounds cooler calling it allongé. We're just sipping on two allongés, like looking over old Quebec, and we're just talking. And he just gave me career advice, but also he's sort of like hearing, me out about sort of like the pivot to obviously go independent, launch Hello and Welcome with Alex, with Jerome, with the Nation Network, and just giving great advice and just being a really, really good dude about this whole thing, and sharing with me some stories about how he came up, and sort of like just being very understanding too. You know what I mean? I think like a lot of people have come at this from a place of concern. I'm like, are you okay? Are you still able to sort of get access? Are you still able to put food on the table? I promise you those things are fine right now. Which has really been great, and it's been humbling the whole process. But in any case, like I just had a wonderful afternoon with Matt Devlin, and then we brought Matt to the studio, and whatever, we had a great chat, we had a great call, just in general. At one point, I asked him about the infamous Punjabi call for Peja Stojakovic's 3, which is unfortunately for Matt, like that's still my favorite call of his. I know he called literally the Raptors winning the championship, which is super cool, but like Punjabi for a Peja Stojakovic 3 is still going to be my all-time favorite Matt call. But if I had a close second, it would be what he said today, because we also pitched him some new calls that he can test out for this new Raptors roster, and we got those from our friend of the program, Ennis Esmer, who actually is a really, really good actor, and you can catch him in a lot of programs, including Children Ruin Everything, and also Bottoms. I think not Bottoms. What's the movie with Rachel Sennott? Oh my God, I used to be funny or something like that, I think. In any case, Ennis is in a lot of great things. And he gave us some like ideas to sort of pitch for Matt Devlin. And one of them was RJ kidding me, which still cracks me up. It just feels a little silly the way he said it, but he actually busted that out live on the broadcast, and that was super, super cool. And as soon as it happened, messed with a lot of people, obviously including Ennis, and let him know. And yeah, that's just, I don't know. Matt's a great guy, like in general. If you get to know his story too, it's I mean, look, I'm not trying to plug the show that much, but like you should listen to that interview that we did with Matt. We got to sort of take him out of that broadcasting role and sort of like really focus on him. His story is really inspirational. He's a really good guy, and that was a really great call. So most important guy goes to Matt Devlin. And that's it. The React Pod is is over. Thanks to everyone for listening. Please continue to rate, review, subscribe to Hello and Welcome wherever you listen to podcasts. We are going to try to go live literally as much as possible. So I will be here live after Wednesday's game against the Charlotte Hornets. But yeah, for myself, Walu, for my producers, Jerome Chang, feel better soon. Also, Alex Wong. This has been the Hello and Welcome podcast presented by Betway.